Welcome to the very first podcast of the To Be Missed podcast. I'm your host, Misty Thomas, and my goal with this podcast, vlog, whatever you want to call it, is that we get to know the women in our community a little bit better. And the name of the podcast, To Be Missed, really encompasses the idea that I long to become a woman who you miss her presence when I'm not there. So if you leave your community, if you left your church, if you left a room, would people miss you? Do you bring value to the atmosphere? And my guest today, I knew exactly who I wanted to be the very first guest of this podcast because she is exactly that. I met her when I was 5 years old, and from the moment in kindergarten when I met Miss Jenny Beasley at that time, she has always created an atmosphere that was energetic, it was kind, it was safe, it was warm, there was freedom. I knew I could say anything to Jenny and never be judged, and there was always advice given back to me or just real love given to me. So when Jenny leaves my presence, I miss her dearly, and she is the perfect person to start this podcast because today we're going to learn more about Miss Jenny Beasley Cummings now. She's been married for 25 years. She has two sons, Noah and Maxton. She is the family support worker and health educator for the Grayson County Health Department. Hi, Jenny.
Hey.
It's so good of you to be here.
Well, thank you.
And I love you. I love the light that you shine. And I have never been in your presence that you were cranky or I left going, shoo, she's in a mood today.
I know.
How do you do that? Because I know I leave people and I think, I am so embarrassed that I acted like that. I was angry, I was mad, I was cranky, I was sad, I didn't encourage them, but you never seem to be that place. And life seems to be perfect for you.
No.
I know, none of us live a perfect life, but you do a really good job making for sure that everybody around you is first. And I love the atmosphere you create. Do you realize that you do that?
Probably not. I know, like, first of all, for you to say, like, you're not, you don't seem like you're ever cranky or whatever, like, ask my husband.
We don't live with you.
But, yes, it happens. And I will say that I know that my life is different now. Like, I know that within the last probably 9 or 10 years, my life has changed. I have not always probably been the person I am now as far as how I handle things. I just laugh at life. I mean, I just think that you can find humor in just about anything. I think life gives us some perspective sometimes, and it loosens us up quite a bit. And we learn just not to take ourselves so seriously.
So it's not taking life too seriously. Laughing about everything.
Yes.
My husband makes me laugh, and it's the reason I absolutely madly love with him.
Yeah.
But for those people who don't feel like they have anything to laugh about, how do you change their perspective?
Well, I think first of all that, we really can't have joy apart from Christ. But it's something that I feel like I started to experience real joy in life when I realized I had no control whatsoever of what was going to go on.
Okay.
And so once through a series of things that happened in my life, once I kind of got to the point where I didn't worry so much, then I kind of began to be able to just rest in the fact that, hey, I'm along for the ride. Whatever happens is going to happen, and it doesn't really do any good to worry. I can certainly try to make good choices and do things that I can, handle my life in a positive way if I can. But for the most part, the joy comes from trusting that He's got it, He is in control, and that just like He's been with me through difficult times before and good times, He is going to continue. That grace is going to be there in the future. And that helps me to have joy.
I've described you from my perspective of you, and then you spoke at Women of Worth. And you shared some things that blew me away because I had never seen any of those things in you.
Really?
You described worry, you described anxiety and fear, and I thought, this isn't the Jenny I've known my whole life. And that's what I love about Women of Worth and why I want to do this podcast is because I want people to know what you see on Facebook, that's our best version.
Yeah, it is.
That's our polished version. And they're not a fake life, but you're just getting the best. Because if we put the real stuff out there, then people get onto us.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't a platform for that.
Yeah.
But then when you just put the good stuff, you're accused of being fake.
Right.
But it wasn't Facebook. It was, I have been around you, weaved in and out of your life since 5 years old, and you hid it so well that I never knew you battled anxiety or fear, those things.
It was like fake it till you make it. I felt like in my 20s, I felt like I knew what I wanted to be like. And if I could just read enough books or imitate enough people or like think of people that I thought were like good Christian women or whatever, if I could just do that, I could create some version of myself that would be good enough.
Okay.
And part of that is just not having a real good understanding of the gospel, I guess. But I tried that and it didn't work. So I would try really hard when I was around. And it's not that I was never happy, but it was just very like maybe I would be out with friends and I would laugh, and then I would come home and I'd think, I said this and should I have said that, and I would worry and I would stew and I would replay the whole thing in my mind, and I didn't really have a lot of freedom in just feeling like I could be myself. And I think that just takes time. You know, some people are really lucky because at a very early age they feel really comfortable in who they are and in their own skin, and I just didn't get that till probably a little bit later.
How do you develop that? Because I know so many women who say that thing, that I replay every word I say, and then I get upset with myself, and then I don't go out because I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing.
I think it's just an understanding of grace. You have to have grace with yourself. And I think you have to surround yourself with people who are going to have grace with you. And I don't think that that's something sometimes we understand. Like when I go out with, you have that true circle of friends that you have, and you know you're going to say stuff sometimes, you're going to have a bad day. You're going to say something and that is not you. That's not who you are. But they're just going to they're not going to hold that over your head. They're going to love you and know that and they're going to speak truth to you and say, Jenny, that's not who you are. Or they're just going to laugh, and you're going to laugh about it, and then you just know. I think when you can be around people you're really comfortable with, then that helps that. Maybe sometimes when we're younger, we're obviously not everybody that we hang out with we're super close with, but I think it's important to have those people that you just have this understanding of we're going to have grace with each other.
Right. I think it's important that with women, you find your tribe. I learned that phrase from you. You carry or have a necklace that says find your tribe and love them hard. I've talked about that before. But inside your tribe, you already know that person so well that you know when it's an off personality or an off moment for them. But when you're outside of your tribe, you have to know, and I think it's important to protect yourself when you're not with your tribe. That's where you come back and you're more reserved.
Yes.
Because if you say something outside of your tribe that is off color for you, that's not going to be where you find grace.
Right. It's not.
And I think as women, we need to get to where we're giving each other grace constantly. We are so hard on each other.
We are.
So when you were imitating these women, what were some of those characteristics that you saw that you wanted to put in your pocket and take with you?
Just mainly, as far as, of course, it wasn't very long after we were married. We got married in 95, and then Noah was born in 99. So, we were newlyweds, and then we, had Noah a little bit later. A lot of it had to do with parenting. I saw a lot of parents that I felt like they didn't yell at their kids, or they didn't get mad or upset. And I thought, okay, I want to be like that.
Sure.
I don't want to be a yeller. Well, being a yeller will only get you so far. On your own will to not be a yeller, it's your heart. And so that's what I'm saying. I think that I saw a lot of outward behaviors, but I didn't deal with my heart. I was just trying to imitate that. I had one of my just dear mentors in my life all throughout time has been Barry Binkin. That they lived here for years, and then we went to church with them. But I remember Barry during a Bible study once telling us that my relationship with Marty should be that of that my children know that relationship comes first, that I love him, and that I love the kids too, but that relationship is the most important, that I love him more. And I remember at first I thought, that's kind of I thought about that. It wasn't something where my kids would feel neglected because I love their dad more. It was there would be peace that they would feel because I love their dad so much.
Okay, that's important because I've had my pastors say that before. A lot of pastors say that, and when I've shared that with other women, I've had them come at me combatively, verbally combatively, and say, no, kids first, always. But I think what you've got to understand is Adam and Eve came first. The marriage came first. Even in the nursery rhyme, first came marriage, then come the baby. If that relationship isn't first, then the parenting is not as good as it could be.
Right.
And it took me a long time to figure out Jason and I were first so that the children benefited from the peace in the household.
Yeah.
Think about the peace in your household if your marriage and your relationship is first, and that is well.
Yeah.
Then the babies are well, that your children will learn to be married from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you want your children to have a good marriage, you have to invest in your marriage and make that good. So
yeah,
I love that you brought that point
mm-hmm.
out. So Barry Binkin,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at this point in your marriage, Marty's first.
Yeah. I think that just really struck me that I need to work on that always.
Yeah.
It's not something that I can, because you and I both are at this point now, you blink and your nest is empty.
Yeah, but you have to learn how to do it. So
Yeah.
when people say marriage is work, what's work look like physically to you?
Well, I think marriage being work is just really making time for it. You have to be intentional.
Mm.
You're not going to have time for each other if you're not intentional about it. It's just not going to happen. Life is too crazy. One of the things I really think about, and it kind of goes with my marriage, and I think definitely with parenting my kids, and even still now, I think that if we can do everything with the gospel in mind, when I am parenting my kids, because I work with moms and I work with a lot of families, and just even in ministry at church and things like that, young moms will be like, I don't know if I'm doing it right. Like sometimes I feel like I'm having days where I'm knocking it out of the park, and I'm trying to make sure that they're learning this and they're learning this and they're doing this, and it's just crazy. And the one thing that I always say is that if you can parent with the gospel in mind, if you can just every day live out the gospel to your kids, we're going to mess up. We're going to ask for forgiveness, and we're going to move on. That is living the gospel out every day in front of your kids.
How simple.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
You're going to upset me sometimes. I'm going to upset you. Let's forgive each other, and then whole day, the next day is new. In my marriage, I always call it, when I talk to some of like young married couples, or I always say that, how on your phone you can turn it completely off and it's like a hard reset. I don't know if that's a hard reset, like I'm not using the right terminology, but it's just a reset.
Mm-hmm.
I think in our marriages, I don't know if you feel this way, but it's like sometimes we just need a hard reset.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are like two ships passing in the night. Maybe we're just running at each other at this point. Like we've had some, and it doesn't even have to do with each other. It's what we're packing around from the week or from the day. And sometimes I think if I can just mentally visualize the fact that, okay, things are not going to get better until we have a hard reset.
Right.
And so sometimes what that means is saying, okay, I know I have been in a terrible mood. And hopefully you're going to meet that with, well, I've been in a bad mood too. And it's like, okay, let's just start over. Let's just reset. And if you can just kind of keep that in mind, I think that's another way we just kind of live out the gospel in our marriages, is it's just constantly like, okay, we're coming to a point. It's not going to get any better unless we reset.
Somebody has to take the initiative to
Yeah.
say, I'm going to vocalize right now. There's a weird, awkward place right now between us.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it out loud. Because our spouse gets the worst of us.
Yeah.
The world gets our representative.
Yeah.
And our spouse gets the real us. And sometimes the real us is, I want to take it all off and just be bleh.
Yeah.
But that can be damaging in a
Yeah.
relationship too. So you have to be really careful. And you have to guard. You have
Yeah.
to guard that this person still wants to be in love with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we have to remember is we want to still be in love with our spouse.
Yeah.
But we have to figure out how to do the work. When we first met, we did a lot of work.
Yeah.
Remember opening my door for me?
Yeah.
You could still do that if you wanted to. We made plans. We dated each other's representative for the first 6 months, and then we began to really get to know each other.
And that's what I hate to see people call it quits so early, because it really gets really good. I mean, it really does. Like, even though there's some really hard times and you're working out some of the, you're having kids and you've got just different things going on, but if you can kind of hang in there and get through some of that, it does get really fun. And we laugh a lot now. Marty laughs because he'll say, I love you, and I'll say, well, I know you do, or you would have left by now.
You must really,
I really love
me
now, because we had some times, but we joke about it and laugh about it, and I just think that's part of the work. I think knowing, if you haven't read the Love Languages book, I tell everybody who's married at my work, wherever I'm at, I preach the message of you got to know your spouse's love language, and you need to know yours, and you know your kids'
children's love language.
Yeah, and that helps you be able to love them in a way that they receive that as love.
Yes. So jumping from marriage and doing the work in marriage and raising 2 teenage boys.
Yeah. But I have boys, and no one, they are their own unique creatures for sure. But there's a lot of joy in having them too.
Are yours similar or are they different?
Oh goodness, they are very different. But they both have, I have a good relationship with both of them, but they are both different and they get along really well. And I didn't realize what a gift that would be to get older and see your kids get along with each other outside of having to. Like, it's one thing when they have to sit at the table beside each other, because that's a rule, but like, recently, Marty and I were out of town, and like Noah and Kinsey invited Maxton to come over and eat supper with them. I'm like, that is so,
I love it.
I love.
So my kids are at that place where this Sunday we're going to have dinner for the one who's having a birthday today, and they're all excited everybody's going to be home.
Oh, okay.
So they look forward to that. I will say this, when we go back and talk about putting your spouse first and then the kids come under that umbrella, it's not that you're doing less for the kids, it's that you're creating a better atmosphere for them. But the peace in our household, once I learned that, has created an atmosphere where my kids didn't fight.
Oh, okay.
They were friends. They didn't grow up bickering like a lot of siblings do, and I really attribute that to the advice that I was given, that keep the peace in your house. My pastor says it like this: set the thermostat. Yeah. And if the thermostat is peace, the kids will communicate. So what's it like being a mother-in-law?
It's really good. I mean, I just think that it's like all my prayers have been answered. Yeah. Because, I've been praying for who he would marry for since he was little. And then along she comes, and, they were young when they got married. But I knew Noah would be, when he met her and brought her home, I knew that would be it. Like, it was just so.
We were at a Upward basketball game, and you and I were talking about, we were going to have to talk to our kids about sex and marriage. Yeah. And our kids were small, and we were both like, we were entering that phase of parenting. It was like, oh no, big gulp. And you said to me then, I have told Noah, God has somebody for you, and I have prayed for her. Yeah. And when she comes along, you will be accountable to her for your decisions you've made. And look at my God, chills. Every time I saw him and Kinsey together, your words would go through my mind that this mama has prayed for her.
Well, and I always said too, with the boys, I'm like, listen, who you're dating right now may not be your bride, but she's somebody's bride.
Yes.
And you need to be thinking about that person that's out there for you, whoever that may be. Maybe it is that person, but that person is out there for you, and how do you want her to be treated?
But I love that advice, and I think that's very important advice. If you're in that phase where you're having to talk to your kids about sex and sex before marriage, I would always say to my kids, this is bringing shadows into your bedroom. Yeah. This is having to tell your husband or wife why you didn't wait for them, why you did all of these things. But I remember you saying that to me, that she is somebody's wife. Yeah. I always thought that was so powerful. So now here she is, your mother-in-law.
Oh, yeah. And I love her. I mean, she has brought so much to our family. I can tell that she just fits right in, and it's so good to see them together and how they play off each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we enjoyed hanging out with them, and it's really been good. And I just I wrote her when they got married at the rehearsal dinner. I took out of my prayer journal some different snippets I had prayed about her, and I put it in a little shadow box. And I wrote her a letter, and because I'm much better, I guess, with writing than I'm just saying things out loud a lot of times. And I just told her, I made some promises to her. I said, you all are going to make some promises to each other tomorrow, and I'm going to make some to you. And I promise that I'm always going to encourage you to love him well. I'm going to encourage him to love you. And that I will only say positive things about you.
Oh, I'm in tears.
That's
so cool. Yeah. Because the world has taught us that your mother-in-law is a really bad person.
I know. And I just want that, because to me, the more I can push him to her and push them together, and I don't mean push, that sounds really aggressive, like a pushy mother-in-law, but I have to die to self, because sometimes it's that's your baby, or you think it is, but the goal is to raise them so they can get married, and I don't want to stand in the way of that. And if I have to die to self sometimes to be like, okay, it's fine, and then make their own decisions, then that's okay. But I really want to encourage her and lift her up. I had a really, really good mother-in-law, and so I had a really good example of that. And just the way Marty and I kind of lived out our life, I think Noah saw that too. And so, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be bad if you just kind of can look at it as what the end goal is.
I want my future daughter-in-law, my future son-in-laws to like me as their mother-in-law.
Yeah, I know she loves me just like I
But
love
here's
her.
the thing, when we help our children create the unity in their household, then your grandchildren are going to
Oh
grow
yeah,
up under that covering of peace.
yeah,
I keep going back, it's so important to create peace in your household because look at
Yeah.
the benefits your children have.
yeah,
We may not have always gotten it right, so we may not have always gotten it right, but we have given them a lot of peace over the last, I came to Christ in February 2008, so 12 years.
yeah.
In 12
definitely.
years, I've walked in a lot of peace and joy that my children have reaped the benefits of that.
Oh yeah,
God got my attention and brought me to Him when He spoke to me. I say it was audibly. I heard it. If you were in the room with me, I don't know if you would have heard it, but He said, "You've sown a lot of garbage and your children are getting ready to reap it."
Wow.
And so it's always been in my mindset that I am sowing things for my children that they will reap. And you
Yeah.
have done such a beautiful job sowing peace.
Um,
And now their marriage,
Yeah.
and what's the next step for Jenny
Oh,
when Maxton goes to college?
I know. Well, it's funny. Like trying to figure out. I feel like and I know everyone is different, but for me, a lot of the decisions I've made in the last 20 years have been what works out best for us as a family. I worked, and I know you have to. You work jobs because it works good for your family.
Mm-hmm.
You do different things because it works good scheduling and things like that. And I really admire people who are young who know exactly what their talents
Yeah,
are.
who you are.
Yeah.
Where's that come from?
I'm like, that's great.
I'm 44 trying to figure it out.
I know, and that's what I say. Some people do know. I think some people just God gives them that very early.
You know early.
You
yes.
know, but for me, like I feel like I'm just now at 44, kind of coming into my own where I know like what my gifts are, what my gifts are not, and that's something that people ask a lot. Like, well, how do I know like what I'm supposed to do? I think I went to a Beth Moore like Living Proof conference one time, and I'll never forget. She said, "Listen, sometimes it's really hard to know what your gifts are, but it's not hard at all to know what they're not."
Yeah, that's the
So
thing.
start there.
Let's weed out.
Yeah,
Like,
start there.
I know I'm not a singer.
No, me either.
I've been banned from playing the tambourine.
In many places.
In many places, not just church.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a
Yeah.
great place. And I think before I ask you what your gifts are, I think what's interesting is some of the gifts, when you realize what your gifts are, it can feel pretentious to say this is what I do.
I know, because we want
Singing
to
is obvious.
Yeah, we want to be humble, and we don't want to be like, well, I have a spiritual gift. Like that feels weird to say that.
Mhm.
But something else I think is so powerful, and especially with our generation, is speaking into people who are younger and saying, listen, I see this in you.
Yes.
I don't know if you see this in
Yes.
yourself, but you are very good with
Yes.
kids. You have a
We're
lot of
supposed
patience.
to do that. Yes.
Yes. And have you ever had that happen and you're just like, I appreciate that so
Mhm.
much, because it kind of, we don't know for sure sometimes, but
That's how
I love.
That's how I know what some of my gifts are, is because I've had multiple people identify the same things in me, and
Yeah.
it just confirms. And I'm like, thank you, God,
Yeah.
because singing is not one of
No,
them.
it's not
I
one
wish
either.
I wish it was the obvious gifts,
Yeah.
but it is not.
Yeah.
So what are your identified gifts that you know?
I think I'm an encourager.
Absolutely.
That's probably my number one.
Have you all figured that out yet? The gift of encouragement.
I'm an encourager.
Yes.
I love to encourage people. I wish I had more time, I guess, to even be able to do that. But I feel like my job is just encouraging people. At work, I work with families. I do home visiting. I was doing home visiting before all this,
Yeah.
but now I do weekly phone calls. But I had a mom the other day that she has struggled with some substance abuse problems in her past, and she's come out of that. And I was like, I am so proud of you. Like this has been I know this has got to have been so hard, and look at you, you're doing this, and this. And she said nobody has ever told me they were proud of me before.
Oh wow.
And
Wow.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I wasn't just saying that. I'm like, wow, that's something I can't imagine coming through what you came through.
Yeah.
But I really like to encourage. I work at the school system, and it's funny because I talk about abstinence. We have an abstinence curriculum in our health department, and so I go into the middle school and hope I get to go back with everything with school going on. But I get to talk to kids about what are healthy relationships, because that's where it starts.
I love it.
We can talk about making good or bad decisions, but if we're not talking about like foundationally where that starts and what's healthy and what's not, so I like that. And I don't know. That's probably my biggest. I'm just a cheerleader, I guess.
Yeah. I think you have a gift of speaking. And being encouraged, you have to be able to be
Yeah.
a public speaker as well, because I think it's connective tissue. You're a beautiful writer.
Oh, well, thank you.
Great teacher.
Thank
So I knew, though, at 5 years old, you had the gift of encouragement, even though I didn't have the terminology. But I say this, your kids are already operating in their God-given gifts and talents. You just need to foster that. So best advice that you've ever been given that changed your life, do you know what that is?
You know, probably it goes back to when just being told about, you know, your husband, the relationship with him is first. I've been given like a lot of, one of the things somebody said to me a few years ago, they phrased it this way, and I've used it all the time, is on your best day. When you look at people and you say, like for instance, the situation I was was going through at the time, and I know we'll talk about this a little bit, this may be just a good segue into that, but I was actually expecting a little girl, and we found out that she had trisomy 18. So I was 28 weeks pregnant when I delivered her, and she was stillborn. And I had a really hard time because after that happened, I was just bogged down in my grief. I was sad, and I wanted to do better. Because when you're somebody that you're an encourager, it's hard. It's so hard for me to encourage myself. It's so hard. And a really good friend of mine said, Jenny, on your best day, you had a stillborn baby 7 days ago. On your very best day right now. Yeah. So when you are doing great 7 days ago, that's where you're at right now. And that just gave me this perspective that kind of allowed me to have grace with myself and now, like, okay, this is going to take time, but that's where I am. And so I kind of started applying that to other things. Like I would say, like, on your best day, you're on your, like I tell my moms all the time that I work with, on his very best day, he's 2. Right. On his very best day. On your very best day, you're a mom, a first-time mom, and you are trying to breastfeed, and you have been doing this for a week. Like that's you on your best day. Right. And so that's something that kind of stuck with me when she said that, and I applied. And now my people who know me, they'll say it now too. Like, okay, on your best day.
I've never heard that, and I love it.
Yeah,
never heard it. I love it. So you did give birth to a stillborn little girl. Her name was Loris.
Loris, yes.
And how long ago was that?
It was in 2011.
So for a woman who encourages people in the Lord, how does a good God take your baby girl? How do you have an answer for the people who are watching right now who are saying, I hear you say I need to walk with Christ, and you have all of this joy, but he took my child. Yeah, he did. And you know, I wish I could wrap it up in a bow and say, like, this is like the great thing that, you know, I don't know. I won't know this side of things. Why? But I do know that, you know, Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good of those who love him. And it goes on to say in the Jenny Cummings version of scripture, because I'm not quoting it exactly, but that to make us more like him. Yeah. And I feel like that it was a terrible thing. You know, we were so excited, and this was going to be our little girl and everything. But it was a situation, I'll just be honest, it was what God used to show me that I had no control at all. Yeah. Because when you sit at a doctor's office and you're 26 weeks pregnant and your doctor says, you know, your baby's not going to live. I don't know if it'll be while she's being born, right after or before, but like this is how this is going to happen, and there's no hope. You know, I knew that God is definitely a big God, and he could do whatever he wanted to do, but I also knew that he might not heal my daughter this side of things. And when somebody sits across from you and you have this belly and you feel this baby moving and you're like, you know, she's alive and I don't know, it really makes you think there was nothing I could do. For the first time in my life, there was no list I could make. Right. There was nobody I could call. There wasn't anything I could do on my own to make that any different. And I hated that. But at the same time, with that came some freedom. And it wasn't right in that moment. I wasn't like, oh, he got, you know, everything's going to be good. But over time, over the weeks and months, it just made me realize that, you know what, I don't trust him. And I don't think he did that because I didn't. I don't think there was anything punitive about what happened to me. And I want to be clear about that. I don't think there was anything about what happened that was something I did to deserve or being punished or anything like that. But I do think that in that process, he used that
to grow me closer to Him. And I think it takes time. It's not something that happens instantly. But I know that when I was after she passed away and we had her service, we had some friends over for lunch, and I remember one of my friends saying something, and I laughed from like the deepest part of me. And I'd had a C-section, so it hurt to laugh. And I just thought to myself, like, it hurts to laugh. Like, in this hurt, there is still laughter, and life is going to go on. And I hate that this happened, but it's going to be okay. And since then, it just totally shifted my perspective. It's not anyone. My whole life, people had told me, like, don't worry, you got to give your problems to Jesus. And like, I would say that, they would say that, and I would listen. I would think, I want to. But in that moment, I was able to be like, okay, if He can walk me through this and get me through, because I always laugh, I know you've heard me say it before, but like, the Jenny Cummings I know would have been in her bathroom floor, rocking back and forth, singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars. Like, she would not have been able, but through Him, I was able to. And if He can do that, He can get me through so much more. I would give anybody this advice. If you're trying to love on someone who's going through something unthinkable, sometimes all you can say, and it's so helpful, is just say, you know what, I don't know what this is going to look like. I don't know when this is all said and done what's going to happen. I can't tell you it's going to be okay, even like that, but I know that God is going to be there with you, and He's going to get you through whatever happens. There's going to be grace there. And I'm going to be here too. Like, just promising as women, as if we could just, sometimes I think we kind of steer away sometimes when people have issues because we don't know what to say and we can't fix it.
I think that's the hardest thing. Do you find that you don't have the words to say?
Yeah.
So then we get frustrated with self.
Yeah.
And I think that we feel like, especially women who are encouragers or women who are in ministry or trying to be strong for other people, we don't think if we grieve, we're not being strong enough.
Yeah.
So what would you say to a woman who is grieving a child, a spouse, somebody? They're grieving the loss. At what point do you say it's okay to grieve, and at what point do they need to reach out for counseling?
I think that if you're moving through your grief, and it's going to hit like waves. So like, you may be in Walmart and walk past, like, for me, walking past the diaper aisle sometimes, or like the baby stuff, it would kind of bother me. And it would come and it would go. Milestones would happen, like birthdays, Christmas, things like that would happen. I think that it's always okay to talk to somebody. I'm the kind of person, always helps me to talk to somebody about anything. So if you're that kind of person and you feel like it would just help to talk to somebody, always, that's fine. But if you ever feel like you're stuck in your grief, that you're not moving forward, that instead of having like a wave and then it's okay, and then it's another wave, and I know it's different for everybody. Those waves may last for weeks for some people, but when you start feeling stuck, like you can't move past it, it's affecting you to the point that you're not eating, you're not sleeping, you're not able to really take care of yourself, you don't want to get out of bed. You've probably kind of moved into some depression, and likely so. That would be totally understandable. But I think when you start getting stuck, you probably need to really reach out and talk to somebody. I don't think it ever hurts to talk to somebody.
You have a blog for people who want to read more of your story about Loris and other things. Where would they find the blog?
Well, it's at jennycummingsphoto.com.
I hope you've enjoyed this. I really want you to get to know the women in your community. Until we walk in someone else's shoes, we cannot truly be kind to someone. We have to make an emotional connection with people. And then when you see them out, you can then say, your life looks perfect, but you deal with the same things I deal with. It just may manifest in a different way. You deal with grief, you deal with anxiety, you've dealt with worry, you've dealt with raising kids, you've dealt with marriage and hard things. Best advice you would give a woman who truly wants to become the very best version of herself?
I would say definitely be in the Word. Our pastor a couple of weeks ago made this comment in his sermon that says, if you feed it, it will grow. Whatever you feed will grow. And so if we feed that, if we want to become a woman who loves the Lord and who lives for Him, if we will feed that, and when I say feed that, it is with being in the Word, but also who we surround ourselves with, or what we listen to, what we're reading, then that is going to grow. be yourself. Find those things that you are passionate about, that you're good at, the gifts that you have, and just expand on that. And don't try to be a different version of yourself other than who God intended you to be. So.
Yeah. You be the best polished version of yourself.
Yes.
All joking aside, I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
And I'm so thankful at 5 years old you walked into Miss
Well,
Skinner's
I'm
class.
thankful for you too.
Yeah. Thank you for bearing your heart, your soul, and being very transparent. And I know that whoever consumes this podcast will walk away knowing real applicable things to be able to do to make life better for them.
Well, thank you.
Join us. Hopefully, I will be able to do this weekly if my school schedule allows, but I hope you've enjoyed getting to know Jenny better. Please read her blog, message her. I know that she would love to talk to you if there's anything you'd love to talk to her about, or find her at the Grayson County Health Department for all of those things that you're doing there.